Trust to Disrupt, the podcast where visionary entrepreneurs, artists, creators, Web3 and crypto minds share visionary conversations and disruptive success stories.
If people were more focused on self, they would be happy. They would be happier. They would be able to tap into the frequency of unconditional love, and there ultimately would be more peace.
Music brings a very magical and otherworldly feeling to the human experience, and this is the vibration that inspires me. This is a statement from the visionary voice that is my amazing guest today on the Trust to Disrupt podcast. She's a multi-hyphenated entrepreneur, a recording artist, singer and songwriter, a model, and a spiritual life coach, focusing on intuitive guidance and ascension coaching. As a public figure, she believes that her mission is to raise consciousness through her various art forms, promoting self-assurance and unconditional love in her music, freedom of self-expression within her modeling. And her mission as an intuitive guide and ascension coach is to assist individuals in becoming the highest version of themselves by revealing their divine purpose and soul mission. This US-based artist has put herself and her message of unconditional love and free self-expression courageously out into the world multidimensionally across the past 5+ years after shifting her whole life around. Her music art channels are followed by more than 3,000 people, her modeling pathway is followed by close to 40,000 fans, and her coaching business has built a community of more than 7,000. The creator has a very own view of truth on the world and what we all need for a brighter, more peaceful and fulfilled future. She uses her incredible connection of vibration, clairvoyance and clairaudience to channel it into her music, her art and her work with individuals, supporting Ascension day by day. She says, "I am creating heaven on earth." Please warmly welcome the visionary Nikki Ariel.
Oh my God. Wow. I have angel bumps. Like the most intense goosebumps. That was the best introduction that I've ever heard on any interview podcast ever. Wow.
Thank you, gorgeous. I'm feeling these. Just had angel bumps. I love the word.
So heavenly. Like God put those words in your mouth, you know? Wow. That was, Judith. Oh my God. All right. Hello.
Hello, beautiful. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you on here. We've got so much to talk about, also for everyone who's listening, as you beautifully combine so many different artistries, right? And so many different ways of expressions. It's just so beautiful. And one of the reasons of the many that I was so excited to be having you on the show. And I would love to start with that quote that I found out, right? Your words that you said, music brings a very magical and otherworldly feeling to the human experience, and that this is the vibration that inspires you. So for those listening, can you elaborate a little bit on like music and frequency, and what does it mean to you, and why is that important in our world? Like, where's that connection to the whole world?
So for me, music just makes me, before even I had my huge spiritual awakening in 2020, music was like my first love. Well, the arts were my first love. And then just growing up, little by little, from the tender age of 3, I began to pick up on unconsciously, like what you just mentioned, frequencies and just the vibration of feeling like a calling to come home. And I used to contribute this feeling to magic. I didn't know that there was a correlation between God and music, or spirituality and music. And, growing up and then becoming a teen, finding out that you have all these intense emotions as a teenager, and becoming your own person, becoming your own woman, you're experiencing life and the different people that you come across, these different connections, and some of them are soul connections. And then you start to slowly connect the dots and you piece, oh, this connection relates to music or is inspired by my love for this connection intertwined somehow with music, and then you identify that with magic as well. And then as you start to go along the path of your spiritual journey, you see that it's like this big carpet, this big tapestry of divinely orchestrated connections that begin to push you down this rabbit hole of your divine truth. And you realize that each person that you encountered on your journey symbolizes like a growing, I don't know how to articulate this, but like a point in your life where like a post, like a stand post where you're like, okay, or a guiding post. There you go. Sorry, a guiding post. And you pinpoint a song that inspires you to that moment in time. And then you realize that God was guiding you the whole time through these experiences to your ultimate truth. So to make a long story short, what I'm trying to say is that it's all divine, and magic is divine. It's not this thing that, because some people think that magic is like witchcraft or something that is demonic or of a lower vibration. No, magic is otherworldly, transcendental, fifth dimensional. It's something that is within all of us. And being a kid, being a baby, like I didn't know all of that. It was just something that now looking back, I realized that it was inherent. It was innate the whole time. And I carried this magic along with me the entire time. And there were people that inspired me to go deeper into discovering what that might mean for my overall journey, which is still unfolding. But yeah, it's just, it inspired me to relinquish all the emotions, not to be afraid of expressing myself. And because I had this courage to always just shine in the area of being so vulnerable with lyrics, with my emotions, with even in my relationships, and how music is so intertwined into all of that. It was literally God's grace, God's guidance that was helping me navigate those, the tumultuous episodes that we encounter with our soul connections, or people that might not even be soulmates, but that we encounter on this planet on our personal journey of ascension. And it just brought me deeper into embracing that fully. And I'm able to now embody that in a way where I can inspire others to seek their divine truth through song, and just to let them, be themselves. And that's, that's really the purpose of all of this. It's a lot.
That's great. So what I'm hearing, see if I'm getting that correct. What you say is somehow correct, that music helped you remember that music on these frequency levels reopened this within you, helped you remember of that, which is innate anyways. Is that kind of the door opener for you to
Yes.
rediscover your creative power?
Yes, exactly that. I just feel like what you asked was such an overwhelming question in a great way, because it means so much. Like if it wasn't for the arts, or if it wasn't for music, I wouldn't have been led to my divine truth. Like it was divinely orchestrated in such a way where God used music as an instrument. It's kind of like a play on words, but he used music as an instrument to guide me back home. And on the way home, there were a lot of soul connections that I've encountered that kind of played on the music. You know how you would, as a teenager, you hear a song and then you fall in love. Well, you fall in love with a person because that song just gives you such a high, and it makes you feel like more inspired to be in love with that person because the song reminds you about how you feel about that person. But then later on your spiritual journey, you realize that person was just a catalyst and he didn't really mean anything anyway. It was just, so it's like divine inspiration. Music serves as divine inspiration. That's ultimately what I'm trying to say.
Totally get what you're saying. Now I'm curious when you talk about these teenage times, because when I was that age, music to me was such it was my world to escape to feel good, and to experience a lot of things. And I'm curious, I've heard once, and see if that's true for you, that when you start to connect to music one way or the other, either you're a person who's first always attracted to the tunes, the melody, the sound, or the lyrics of the song, the story that is told that completely catches you because the words have vibrational attachment for you emotionally somehow. And then, it's then it carries over into the music itself. So
Yes.
how was that for you?
I personally, I would attribute that to, or contribute that to the melody. The melody of a song is what captures me first. And then, you know, God being God will synchronize the lyrics to match the melody, to match my experience, to match everything that makes it this, like I mentioned before, this tapestry, this beautiful, divinely woven carpet that creates this beautiful story. And then the story keeps unfolding. Like imagine you put a magnifying glass on a really large carpet and then you span out and then you see more and more and more and more unfolding. So as a teenager, you're just zooming in on that one little aspect of, oh, I met this boy. Oh, this Mariah Carey song, Always Be My Baby, reminds me of this boy. And then you realize that, okay, it's not just about this boy. You zoom out and you zoom out and you zoom out and then you realize that there's a deeper truth behind the reason why you met this boy and why this boy inspired you to fall in love with life or the song or even him at the time. And you see that as an adult that's, you know, undergone a spiritual awakening, you see that there was a deeper truth and you see that it was a catalyst for something much deeper, which I'm sure we'll dive into how catalysts serve us on our journey of ascension, because it's never what it seems in the beginning, you know?
I was just going to ask you if you have, because you know people are listening, and I feel the audience who's listening is quite a little bit on their way already of this journey, right? It's not going to be step one, so but maybe they have not come to that point of fully capturing all of that, right? They might be like, oh yeah, that resonates all. Is there an example, either from your own life or from somebody that you know, where you could use such a situation to be like, okay, the micro situation is this, but
Yes.
then once they allow to go on the macro, and meta level,
Yes.
oh, I'm becoming aware of that actually is what it means.
Yes. I'm so glad you asked. So I'll give you a very personal example. When I was 18, I met a very powerful catalyst on my journey. I would call him a karmic soulmate. And a karmic is a person that is literally designed, orchestrated to teach you lessons about yourself, what to tolerate, what not to tolerate in your interpersonal relationships and in your life in general. So I met a very powerful soul teacher, soulmate, karmic catalyst that I was at the time very, very in love with and inspired by. And at that same time, I just graduated high school and I knew that I wanted to make recording as a recording artist my life, like my mission. Music was my everything. I had just graduated from a performing arts school. So again, God being God, divinely orchestrating all of this. And then my brother, who's also in the music industry, he gives me my first Mariah Carey CD. Mariah Carey has always been my favorite artist. That's why I referenced her in the beginning with Always Be My Baby. But so he gave me my first Mariah Carey CD, and at the time I was dating this guy. And I had the CD on a loop, the lyrics, the way I felt, and her lyrics and her melodious voice. You asked me earlier what grabs my attention first. It's the melody. When I heard every song, every intro, it was the melody that grabbed me on that CD. It was Daydream. The album was Daydream. And I would listen to the song every day while dating this person. So you see how the two kind of just become so interconnected. Me dating, the feelings that I have towards the music, and then you combine the two. To this day, I have no relation to this person, but I still will always associate that CD and that time, that space and time with him, and look back and say, wow, like if it wasn't for that moment, I really wouldn't be where I am today. So fast forward to me now, looking back, hindsight, I'm sensing that, or I'm knowing that he was the catalyst to where I am now, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be on the path of a spiritual awakening at all. This person happens to be highly spiritual, and he was the first person that taught me about otherworldly essences and your higher self, the concept of higher self. He didn't know anything about angel numbers, and I didn't either at the time. But he led, because I met him and I had this very deep interpersonal connection with him, he led me on the path to meeting friends that would introduce me to this stuff. And because it resonated so deeply, hearing about just the way it felt and how everything was so spiritually based, it reminded me so much of my connection to this gentleman that I dated, however many years ago from that time. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going down this rabbit hole of meeting people that connect to other people from the past. And I'm realizing that this is just a path that I'm just slowly walking on. So then again, fast forward to now, I'm realizing that this person served as a catalyst to my ascension, because he introduced me to, well, the lessons that he brought introduced me to my ultimate truth that was catalyzed by the most powerful soul connection of all, which is the concept of twin flames, your divine counterpart. If it wasn't for that initial encounter with this very powerful soulmate, I wouldn't have been prepared to meet my divine counterpart. And in turn, my divine counterpart introduced me to the divinity of who I am, the truth of who I am. And that's like a whole other topic within itself. But if you were to ask me as a whole, how music played a part in my connection with that individual, the soulmate, and now it's just that constant divine inspiration that happens to be so deeply interwoven to the path of just tapping into divine inspiration. Because the more you feel, the more you want to go down that path, the more you want to discover, all these various aspects of self. And eventually through, the heartache and the highs, the lows, whatever you want to call it, you're being pushed to discover, okay, why is all of this happening? What is the truth behind all of this? Why am I going through so much pain? Why can't I finally align with the love of my life? Because that person back then, he wasn't the love of my life. I wanted him to be, but he wasn't. And through that relationship, it was like this constant battle, pulling teeth of, why can't you see me? Why can't you see me? And it became this karmic breakdown of God trying to knock on my door, like, wake up, I'm trying to tell you something. I'm trying to, allow you to see the divinity of who you are. And then one day, boom, I finally woke up. And then that's what led me to my divine counterpart, which in turn led me to my truth. But yes, that's...
Thank you for that profound story. I love that. I want to highlight a few things because if we could open this and depict it in layers, there's so many layers in what you've just shared, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
And one core essence I see in everything that you shared is around relationships. And that is relationship with self, obviously, but then also relationship with all the people we get to meet and have encounters with. And I just love the saying of people come for a reason, for a season, or for a lifetime, right? And so that sounded like this first gentleman came in for a season and a reason, but it was never meant to stay long term, right?
Yeah.
And I do feel that a lot of people on their past, even if they have been on their ascension journey, on this, shifting their view of the world, on that path, still this concept of understanding the relationship between people and how we're wired, what is the blessing of all of these interactions, right, of reading and seeing through, is still a challenge to a lot of people, right? So when we take this idea of relationships and the learning effect we get just from your beautiful example, what would be an advice or something you can help people with, some nugget, if they are at the moment trying to figure that out and they are not really sure, okay, what does that mean? Or where should I look? Or who should I ask? Besides, they could hire you, right? So to help them also. But overall, what do you see? Where do people usually go wrong? What is the misconception in that?
It's funny that you said the higher you, because that's exactly where I would point them to first. It would be God. The reason why I failed miserably in those early relationships in my life is because God wasn't involved. I wasn't aware enough to know that this even existed. A consciousness, the concept of, not even the concept, the truth of higher consciousness even existed. As a kid, I don't know what your background your parents' background is, but as a kid, growing up Catholic, you're just taught the basic stuff. Do good, Jesus loves you, God is good, God is great, God loves you unconditionally, the basic bare minimum stuff. Religion doesn't really teach you about infinite awareness or the fact that you are directly connected to God. There's this sense of separation in the church where it's like, oh, well, if you do bad, God will ban you from heaven. This, the concept of heaven, heaven is here and now, and people don't realize that, So the first thing I would give or say to, a younger me or someone that's similar to me, or younger me, would be to try your best to be more aware of the truth of your existence. And they may not understand what that means, because I genuinely believe that this information is supposed to find you when it's meant to. It's not something you can force. Like, it was deliberate that the creator had me realize all of this 5 years ago. It wasn't something that I really had control over. But I do believe that if a person, like a younger version of me or someone similar to a younger version of me, came across my path, it would be for a reason. It's because they're being guided to awaken. You're not going to come across someone like me and we're going to have conversations that are in depth or deep if you're not being guided to wake up. Because I know that's my purpose of my existence. It's a vibrational match kind of thing. If your focus is on more on low vibrational aspects of life, and you're doing very immature activities, you're doing things that are very much out of alignment with yourself, I don't think that younger person would come into an alignment with me in any kind of way, because they're just not ready. But and this is not to gloat. It's not about that at all. It's just a level of a vibrational match. It's like, there's this quote that I heard and I love it. It's, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And you have to have this level, the sincere level of readiness. You could be unconscious of it, you could be conscious of it, but innately or on the inside, it has to be this level of readiness. But even without that, the vibrational match being a part of the unfolding or anything like that, I would still say, even to an unconscious person, because we can't judge and we can't decipher when someone is ready to wake up or not. That's up to God. When it can happen in an instant, So what I would say to anyone is, prioritize your relationship with God and self before you give your time, body, or energy to anyone else, because it will save you a lot of heartache. Even though that heartache is necessary, it truly is, because it helps you to sharpen and to be quick on your feet and to be agile, to be literally a beast of a human being. You become the most resilient person, and then ultimately you surpass resilience and you become transcendental after a while, literally. And people don't think they're capable of that. People don't think that they're capable of being divine, but truly everyone is. It just takes a matter of choice, aligning with your truth.
I love that you bring that up. There's a few keywords in there. Keyword is control, right? This conception that the world as it is today and the way societies are built and the way, the global economies, but like everything, you break it down, education, everything, and religion, as you just opened this field up, religion as it is taught. I've also been growing up in a Catholic region, like classic kind of thing. Like in Germany, the nuances is a bit more on the don't do that or you get punished kind of a thing, right?
Yep. Yep.
But overall, it's the same story, right? It's the same narrative, and it is basically similar in all of the institutional religions, while all of these have nothing to do with what you were just talking about, right?
Yeah.
So the control mechanism, and then this idea of self and God and consciousness, right? How do you feel they are separating in a good way, so the God and self relationship and the consciousness relationship can be visible and accessible easier from now on as we're ascending in the whole world, and it's becoming more visible. Can you see there, when you look at the whole world, what is that trajectory that you see from a world maybe 15 years ago ish, where the systems and all of the structures that are now crumbling more and more were very rigid still and
Yes.
very closed?
Yes.
And what is your perspective when you look at that now and look at that trajectory? Could you expand a little bit on that? Your
For
view?
sure. So I think that the internet has everything to do with the evolution of mankind, because we're able to relay and share information that would usually be hidden to these highly gifted people. They would just keep it to themselves because there's no way to really, get it out there other than, being an author or writing a book, or, it doesn't work as quickly as the internet does. If you go, a book compared to being able to post a comment or a post in 20 seconds or a second, you can't even compare the two, a bookshelf in the library versus the internet. Come on. So the fact that we're able to relay information in lightning speed is the reason why things have developed exponentially faster than it's ever been. And then because of that, it's creating a snowball effect. Oh, this person experienced this too. Oh my God, I went through the same thing. I thought I was crazy. And then other people start to flock to that same information because it resonates so deeply. So I would attribute all of that to the internet. It's because of the developments in tech and science and things that can help create more of a expansive lifestyle and consciousness. It's because we were able to dive into our gifts, whoever those developers are that created Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all of these amazing platforms that we use today. It's thanks to their gifts that we're able to tap into our gifts. Because I'll use like a personal use of self. When I went through this journey, I was like on a rapid search for self-development, self-improvement. And I would see a lot of coaches and motivational speakers talking, and it was because of the internet. I was just so highly inspired. I was working a 9-to-5 that I did not like. I did not like the job that I was in. And I would often use my time while at work to do research on the internet and listen to things that would inspire me and uplift me and push me towards where I ultimately want to be. And it was, I give credit to all of the coaches and inspirational speakers that I came across, because if it wasn't for the information that they relayed, I wouldn't carry this wisdom, this 3D worldly wisdom that pushed me closer to my divinity. Because those inspirational speakers aren't necessarily spiritual. They're just very smart and savvy and wise. But because of that, it just led me down a rabbit hole. And then I started to pay very close attention to myself and ask myself, what am I doing wrong? What can I do better? Why am I not where I want to be in life? What is it? And then immediately consciousness spoke and said, you're not in tune with me. You're not listening to me. This is God talking. You're not listening. If you listen, I will guide you. I will guide you every single step of the way. Within every nook and cranny, I will be by your side. And I felt this so deep in my presence. I said, you know what? The answer is God. There's no other way around it. It's God.
What you say for people, because I know there's a share of people on the world who don't really resonate with the word God.
Yeah.
What you say, replacing it with consciousness, would be expressing the same as what you mean when you say God, just for
Yes.
people who
Yes.
kind of are a bit on the other end. So, okay,
Yes.
just
Or infinite awareness, infinite intelligence. Yes.
great.
5D consciousness.
I so love that. I've just, I've had people, there's so much discussion about this word and the attachments people tend to have to that. So it's always great to clarify. And I love
Yeah.
when you get so passionate when I see and hear you speaking about that. I can hear that is truth, So that is so true. So guys, when you listen to this, even when you listen to what Nikki is saying, close your eyes just for a few seconds and feel what she's saying. Feel that this is coming from truth. And that is vibration as well, right? That is
Yes.
also vibration.
All vibration. I have goosebumps, angel bumps right now as you said it. Wow, Judith.
Yeah. So what I ask myself, and I'm curious to see how you share this, right? With you being so connected now through all of your journey, right? And obviously the path is ongoing, but still you've come to a level, I'd say, to a position where you're very connected. How do you know or choose in which way of expression you're gonna put out the next thing that is coming down? How do you choose now? Okay, now I'm gonna express this in a model job or in an art thing, or when am I gonna put that in music? Or how is that now that you decide, okay, now this is something more I'm gonna put out into my coaching space? Is there any sort of a rule, or is that very intuitive?
It's very intuitive, and it just hits you. It just comes. You can't really you know what, I would give credit to this area. I love to talk about stillness and inspired action. So when you look at like your to-do list, because I have this long to-do list on my iPhone, it's incredibly long. And I always go back to, I write down things that I know I want to do and have to get done. And I would go through the list. It's not going to be in any sequential order per se, in which order I get the activities done. But I write them down and then I scan through the list. I'm like, okay, what do I need? What's a priority? What's a need? And automatically I'll use my common sense, but then also there'll be this surge of divine inspiration that would flow through. Like, you should really focus on this right now, because if you focus on this right now, you're going to get some really good results from this particular to do. And I'm like, okay, so let's do it. and then it actually ends up working out so cohesively, so smoothly, so natural, because I was able to just be still and listen to my body, listen to myself, make sure that I'm not overwhelming myself, make sure that I'm not doing too much at one time, make sure that I'm not taking on too much at one time. That's why I would like deliberately put off doing things so I don't feel overwhelmed, because there's no need to feel overwhelmed. Why are we going to stress ourselves? The more that we can decrease, putting that pressure on ourselves, the better for us as a whole, because it's just literally unnecessary. So that's how I would really go about it. It's just seeing what's a priority to me, being very organized and knowing what I have to do. And then whenever I feel a divine surge of inspiration, I will just focus on that one thing and say, okay, we're going to do the best that we can with this activity and follow through. Yeah.
Following through is so crucial, one thing. The other thing, as the podcast, and a lot of my work is around trusting to disrupt, because what you've just described, this way of operating, is brilliant. And at the same time, it is very much opposite to how we're being taught how to operate, right? Because there's a certain priority either given, or there's so many things like you should be doing it like this, you should be getting done things in that order, on that pace, or whatever it is. There's so many things in every industry, and then I can imagine you being in so many different industries. There's so many shoulds from all of the industries, right, that potentially you could get lost in, or allow pressure to creep up, or other people's expectations come to you. And as I'm experiencing you now, you really found your way. So is there something that you feel like, what did it take you to come to that trust, to understand I can do it my way, and I'm trusting that what I'm finding here and what I'm feeling, what was resonating, is really mine, versus being wobbly and falling into any of the shoulds? So what's the secret that you found for yourself?
The secret is not to take life so seriously, to be honest. Yeah. I know that sounds like irresponsible to some people, but I feel like when I got deeper into my path, on my ascension path, and just discovering the truth of our existence, why we're here, and just the truth of who we really are, it just made me realize, like, we're literally here forever. Not as people, but we exist forever. Why are we gonna let this little speck in time influence our state of being, to like feel unhappy or unsatisfied with things don't go the way that we want, our limited minds and our limited way of thinking? Like, why is that such a big deal? Why do we take it so seriously? Do what you want to do when you want to do it. Simple as that. And I know that a lot of people won't agree, and that it does come across irresponsible, but when you look at it from a much higher perspective, when you look back 2 years, 5 years from now, you're gonna look back and say, did that really matter? Did that one instance where like I wanted to get coffee instead of going to work 20 minutes earlier, did that really matter? No, it didn't really matter. You know, like it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Even when we die, because we don't die, but the concept of death in itself is like, we are so much more than our physical presence here. And it's that mentality that gives me this very easygoing flow of living. Like, I don't take on too much. I have a pile of debt that I am overcoming. And me knowing that it's there, I don't give it any of my energy. I know that I am abundant. I know that there's a time and place for everything. I know that it's going to resolve itself. So let it resolve itself. I can only do the best that I can. I know that I'm responsible as a person. I take action steps. I'm not perfect, but I take the proper action steps that feel right and good to me. That should be more than enough. It's one thing if you're being lazy intentionally and you're not doing anything. You're just like, ah. And even then, there's a surprise for you because that's still consciousness working within you for a reason. You are embodying that behavior. You know, so everything is always working out, even when it doesn't look like it is. And that is how I perceive life. And that's why I don't take it seriously, because life is always taking care of life, even when you're not taking care of yourself. Yeah.
I love that. And this
Yeah.
is coming across with so much energy and so much confidence, right? People who are listening, listen, even if you pause this now, rewind 2 minutes and re-listen to this, because it is, if you want, an invitation for you to take this also as an ultimate permission to be in life with a little bit more ease and a little bit more fun. And the other important part that Nikki that you just said is not to mistake that with just leaning back and taking yourself out of the equation, which means you're dropping all responsibility. You're still a responsible being. You're just, the attitude and the attachment you have to the situation and the whole thing is the difference. That is the difference. So thank you for sharing that, and also sharing that with such conviction. I love that. And that's a real jam. I feel that is a good thing, a great thing for people to connect to this principle and concept, explore that for themselves a little deeper to understand what does it mean for me, for my version, right? So good. And there's another question I've been dying to ask you to see what your perspective is on that, because as I also do relate to music a lot for various reasons, right? And ever since on my own journey in things that I've learned and that I've rediscovered, all of the frequency stuff, right? And the power music holds because of frequencies, etc., and because of also the intention we bring in it and the energy and all of that, is one area that I'm seeing and that is growing and evolving, and I'm loving it. There's so much more communities being built around music in a different way. And then on the other hand, when I look at the world, I see the classic music industry, right? Looking back at the last, I don't know, maybe 40, 50 years, 60 years, all that has been built. I've just recently seen on Netflix the documentary about the guy who kind of built up NSYNC and what was it, the Backstreet Boys, I forgot his name, Lose something, right? I mean, this is beyond all of the other stuff from that story, but it's like a perfect example how things are made versus they are created.
Yes.
So is there anything that you can, being in the industry, see how it's evolving? Is the other side turning as well? Or is it more there's like a separate parallel development and growth of the other? What would you say?
In terms of like frequency and creating from this higher like sense of living or cognizance, that is definitely shifting. I feel, and I had a slight thought about this today. I feel like a lot of people that are on a similar journey to me are making consciousness pop, like popular. Because I was questioning myself and I said, am I really a pop artist? Because I don't talk about a popular concept, but sonically it still sounds like pop, but my message is more of a higher state of awareness, and people are slowly catching on to these deeper truths. And I feel like even back then, like decades ago, you mentioned NSYNC and you mentioned all these popular bands back in the day. If you listen to their words, they all are talking about the same thing, like unconditional love. Are they embodying it? That's a different story. But unconditional love, knowing yourself, being true to yourself. There's this song by Childish Gambino, very, very amazing song. I posted it on my story the other day on Nikki Ariel Music. It's called 3005. And Childish Gambino is also a visionary. I would love to work with him one day, but that's beside the point.
Let's manifest it right here, right now.
Yeah, yes. He's very, very gifted, and he created a song called 3005, and it's a very popular song, hip hop pop song, and it talks about existential, like an existential crisis. He's worried about, like, is all of this gonna matter? Where am I gonna go when this all ends? Am I gonna die alone? Or like my friends don't really love me for me. They want me for my money, or they love me for my money. Things like this. And he really dove deep into the fact that the only being that you can anchor on, like hold on to, is yourself, which is actually in turn God, source consciousness, infinite awareness. These other people are not going to be right by your side till the year 3005. And 3005 is actually an entendre for infinity, because when you add 3 plus 5, it equals 8. So he's talking about the concept of infinity, infinite awareness, us being here on the planet. And while we're all interconnected, we have to prioritize love of self first, so that we don't attract the people that aren't sincere. We attract true, genuine connections. But the only way that you can get to that level of connection with others is by forming that within yourself first. So to answer your question, I do feel like music is becoming more conscious, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that. And there, it's emerging. It's a slowly emerging movement that's taking place in the industry, which we need. We need the light to infiltrate the darkness. As far as frequencies go, I'm not too familiar about how to utilize them, but I do know that when I hear songs that are of a certain frequency, I can't even tell you like the title or the name or the number sequence or anything like that. But I know when I hear it, I'm like, oh yeah, that feels divine. It feels, and you feel it in your body. Like it makes you want to go to sleep. It makes you want to lie down. It makes you want to meditate. It makes you want to journal. It inspires you to do divine things, meaning connecting with self. You don't want to really dance or party. You just want to be still and enjoy the music. So I feel like we are slowly moving towards more conscious creation, if you will, making things that are serving self more than, the expectations of others.
I love that. Thank you for sharing all of
Yeah.
that. And it makes
Yeah.
me feel really hopeful for this change
Yes.
and this evolution, because I feel, since music is something everyone on the world can relate to, it is such a powerful accelerator. And I love the invitation that you've just given everyone who listens. I'm going to repeat that. Be a bit more aware and conscious when you listen to music, and when you find a song, a melody, something that makes you go like, oh, I want to get still and listen, just like you just said, take that and be mindful about these things and just sit with it, allow it to come to you and allow it to teach you whatever else it needs to teach you or activate within you. So that's a great impulse. It's a great thing to, go about this as an individual. So
Yeah.
the other thing I want to just add to this one before we slowly come to the end of this gorgeous conversation, for those interested, there's also already like light language music out there, which is another interesting thing. Language is channeled from the cosmos, which come in their own frequency with, divine love information, I want to say, packaged in rhythms and melodies. So I feel that could be, it's tiny still, right? But maybe this is growing as well. And then if
Yes.
you want to listen to Nikki's beautiful voice, I know you're out also with visuals on YouTube, but there's also, you're everywhere basically. You're on Spotify, you're on Apple, you're on SoundCloud. So all of the platforms, you're on Deezer, you know, everywhere. Go find her. What's the handle? How to Google you best to find your music?
Nikki Ariel. Nikkie Ariel. Ariel. Yeah.
Amazing. That is that. And as we're on that, so if people want to be inspired by anything that you do modeling wise, or want to look and tap into your coaching offers, where would they find that?
They would find that in my handle. So I have 3 different Instagram accounts. They could find it on my main Instagram account, which is the modeling one. The modeling one was my first ever Instagram account. That's why the following is a little bit, larger. But it's in that Linktree bio. It's linktree.com/Nikki Ariel.
Yeah, and we'll have that in the show notes for everyone. I also
Yes.
feel because there were a lot of options and a lot of guidance on to find everything that you offer, right? So guys,
Yes.
hit that up in the show notes. Find the link. Go search for that. What inspired you most about Nikki? What she shared. So I have a last question before I come to 3 quick closing questions for you. As all that you share and also how you introduced is around this concept of unconditional love and the freedom of self-expression, which I feel are very closely connected, but maybe
Yes.
not everyone can see the dots at the moment. Can you go a little
Yes.
bit in why is it relevant for you? But then also if we
Yes.
go really far out, looking at the whole world, if these both concepts were more present for everyone, how would that positively influence where the world is going? What do you think?
So, yes, the first thing I would direct people to pay attention to is the concept of unconditional love. Unconditional love is operating on such a high frequency that there's no place for judgment, there's no place for fear, there's no place for lack, and there's no place for scarcity. So a lot of people have a problem when they don't agree or see things that resonate with them, or things that their culture doesn't accept, or the way society has conditioned them to see or perceive a certain image or lifestyle or whatever. This is the complete opposite of unconditional love. Unconditional love represents acceptance. It represents trust in your existence, trust in the divine, trust in the fact that you are beyond your skin, you are beyond your physical form. And when you operate from that space, you realize that there is no place to judge anyone. For what reason? We are one with source consciousness. Do you think God comes down and he judges us? Despite, whatever religion tells you, God is not a jealous God. He doesn't have any emotion. The only emotion that God would carry, he's not even a he. There is no gender attached to God. It's just consciousness, infinite awareness, right? So the one emotion, if you were to even, attribute an emotion to consciousness, would just be love. And love has no room for any of those low vibrational aspects of the ego identity. The ego identity will have people creating separation clauses and reasons to be apart, and reasons to look down on others or frown upon others. And that's why I was going through like a little existential crisis of my own, like, because I'm a very devotional person. I love committing to one person. I love the fact of, the concept of monogamy. I love all of those things. And then I know that people might look at me or look at my modeling page and say, oh, well, you're devoted to this one man. Why are you, half naked or naked online or things like that? Being naked and sexual energy in itself is such a purifying energy. But because we're conditioned to see sex as this dirty thing, you mismatch the two. Because if you actually spend time with yourself, spend time with your body, you will realize, or if you actually do your research, you'll realize that the sensations you feel when you are aroused is literally connected to your third eye. It's connected to a higher consciousness. People aren't aware of this, but the day I found out is the day everything became so clear to me, is why life has me operating as consciousness expressing itself in these various artistic forms. Life, God, consciousness, however you want to see it, it was that plan for me to embody or to take place in this vessel, for my essence to take place in this vessel, to look the way that I look, to teach people, not deliberately like by saying, oh, you should listen to me, but just by living in my truth, not giving a damn about what anyone thinks about me, and expressing myself fully to the point where I attracted my a divine counterpart, divine mirror that literally understands this and doesn't place judgment on me, doesn't see me as a Madonna or a whore or whatever you want to call it. We both see it as freedom of self-expression. What matters is the intention. Is my intention to be with different men? Absolutely not. My intention is just to be myself. Being naked is pure in my eyes. Embodying what God has given you is divine. If you can embody that or embrace that without shame, kudos to you. Kudos to you for seeing things beyond just the surface, because it's not about validation. It's not about getting unwanted attention, because to me, because people are so dull, it is unwanted attention. I don't want a lot of people in my DMs trying to take me out on a date or doing any of this, but at the same time I see it as art. I'm not going to not enjoy myself and post it while I can actually build a fan base of people that understand this, people that want to learn more, while showcasing what I perceive as art to the world, and while spreading a divine message like, thou shalt not judge. Do not judge one another. Do not judge. We should not be judging one another. We should be more focused on self. If people were more focused on self, they would be happier. They would be happier. They would be able to tap into the frequency of unconditional love, and there ultimately would be more peace, which is what we need. We don't need conflict. Keep your negative opinions to yourself if it's not helpful. You know what I mean? Like, I'm all for criticism, but if you're not trying to actually, do your due diligence, do your research, find out, learn about different aspects of life and self, then you're just projecting your wounds onto me, and you should be more focused on healing those wounds, because a lot of those women or people are insecure. Men too are insecure. Oh, I have a hot girlfriend. She might leave me. That's how they think. She might leave me for another man. But a secure man would never say that. They would know that their partner is perfectly in alignment with them. That's why the concept of divine counterparts it's so important. But that's another topic.
We
But
need to record another episode just about that, because I feel like literally this is a very profound topic, to be honest.
Yeah.
And from what you just shared, two things. Something deeply within resonated, so apparently I also needed to hear exactly what you just said, so thank you for expressing that.
Aww.
I'll find out later what it is, but it just really landed. And the other thing is, it made me chuckle a little bit, because isn't it so funny, you just brought it really down to the basics that are profound, which is the connection to self and being with yourself first before interacting, and then this concept and the principle of sacred sexuality, which in the end is creation power, right? It's our
Yes.
innate creation power, and
Yes.
especially as women, this is the driving force. And both of these, what are we being told in the world? Don't be selfish, don't put yourself first. Well, guess what happens? We go into separation from self, and the other one is the abstract positioning, I want to call that, of sexuality, which then goes exactly into the other direction that you've just described, where then other people, men and women likewise, tap into that out of this insecurity and out of this low vibrational state. And this is where things get into even more misconception, etc. And then if you extrapolate that to the world from one individual, if 8 billion people are living that concept, then guess what is happening? Exactly what you said. There's conflict. And we don't need that. So closing back the circle is beautiful, the way you just did that, starting with each and every person to connect to self back, and the separation first with self, then you can connect with other people again on that higher vibrational frequency.
Yes.
And you get to express yourself. And also, I've seen your photos, and when I look at your photos, I feel this sacred sexual energy of presence, of just being.
Thank you.
It's powerful. It is really powerful. And there's nothing in it that is like, oh, look at me, or whatever else, somebody might want to project into pictures where there's a bit more skin visible. This is just really presence. It is pure presence. So everyone who's listening, go check that out. Look at that and just observe the energy of that, right? Because that's what it is, the expression. And then essentially, if we then extrapolate that to 8 billion people, oh my goodness, this world would flourish.
Yes. Wow, Judith. Yes. You are amazing.
So good. I love this. So let's close this up. I've got 3 quick questions, and it's really just take the first impulse that comes up. Again, for everyone, we'll put the link tree from Nikki down here. If you got excited, check everything out. Follow her everywhere. Book her, hire her, whatever comes to mind. When you feel the resonance, this is a visionary person, a really courageous visionary person. It's really worth listening to her. If it's the music or in her coaching or whatever, really do that. And so let's hit it. So Trust to Disrupt is the title of this podcast. What does Trust to Disrupt mean to you?
The minute I heard the name, I was like, oh my God, alignment. It means alignment to me. That's what it means, because I know that I was born to break ceilings, break those glass ceilings, beat the system, kick its ass to the ground because it is irrelevant. Trust to Disrupt is such an empowering statement. If more people can tap into the truth of what you're actually saying, again, they would realize that it's just leading them to their own version of heaven on earth, because that's what it's about. That's what it's about. Tapping into your divinity, because we're living in a world that's not divine. We're living in a world that has nothing to do with divinity. And when you disrupt all of these low vibrations, you tap into the truth of who you really are. And that is my mission, is to guide people, whether that's through my coaching or me just being myself, or whether it's through the lyrics or just the overall essence of my music. That is the overall message. Beat the system. Trust to Disrupt.
Amen. Beat the system. I love that. Second question. Who else comes to mind for you that you would love to hear on this podcast in such a conversation? Any name popping up?
Can he be a big person, or could he be? Can he be both? So anyone. I would name my friend, my really close friend. Her name is AJ. She's on Instagram as well. Her handle is Maya Aligned Self. I would list her. I would also list my other really good friend. Her name is Golden. Refining Her. She has it spelled in a cute way, so I don't know the exact handle. And I would also mention my friend Lacey Shamila. She's her and I are like soul sisters, and our paths are so similar with the Ascension and divine counterpart experience. I would mention those 3 lovely ladies. And then for someone that's on a bigger scale would be the artist that I mentioned to you before, Childish Gambino, because he is a visionary. My brother actually works with him. He's his A&R. Yeah, you should look him up when you have a moment. He's great. He's really good.
I definitely will. Thank you for sharing that. Lots of inspiration, not only for me, but for everyone who's listening as well. We're wanting to unite more visionaries. Last question. Your best advice or an impulse for every other visionary future maker out there? Anything that comes up now as closing word?
Do not let anyone stand in your way. The negative comments, the negative people, the people that tell you that you're wrong, the people that try to force feed you their version of the truth. It's the truth. The only thing in this world that is true is your connection to source. That's the only thing that is permanent. That's the only thing that can never fade away. If you are in tune with that, that's the only thing you need in life, is that. Not the external remarks of others, just you and source. And then with that, all of the right resources, people, commitments, jobs, money, all of it will come to you once you anchor yourself in that truth.
Amazing. Yes. I could say amen again, because that was like a complete statement of yes, almost like an introduction to here is your pathway, please go.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Nikki, for your energy, for your time, for your wisdom, for your visionary words, for your beautiful ability to zoom in and out, likewise, and take people along your beautiful journey and the way that you look at the world. Everyone, again, take a look at her links and check her out. And I see everyone on the next podcast episode.
Yes, thank you, Judith, for the opportunity. It was such a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you for everything. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening. I hope you really feel inspired and you gain new perspectives for your own ventures to take action. Remember to subscribe to the podcast, download the episode, and share it with one visionary person who needs to also hear this. Also, please leave a 5-star review if that feels aligned on iTunes or on Spotify. That helps to distribute the podcast to more people and to have high caliber guests on for you to enjoy.